Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CineFix Top 100, the English forest, where we steal movies from the rich and give them to the poor until we've seen 100 of the very best ones. I'm Clint Gage, and joining me, as always, CineFix's chief heartless tax collector, Alex Stedman. Alex, how you doing?
I'm just robbing the poor to feed the rich, you know?
There you go. We learned the wrong lessons from this movie, I can already tell.
That's how these economies work.
And of course, one of our merriest men, Michael Calabro. Cal, how you doing, man?
What's good, dude? How you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. We're still in the thick of season 2 here, our community season, which is a lot of fun. This season in which Dan's algorithm has gone full Skynet on us, but it has provided us with a handful of very good films that deal with community from a couple of different angles. We've talked about Seven Samurai so far, Three Amigos, Star Wars, and this week's movie, Disney's Robin Hood.
Are we good guys or bad guys? Are robbing the rich to feed the poor?
Rob? That's a naughty word. We never rob.
Ooh, Dalali.
Oodalali.
Right, as they say.
Yes. This is a good community movie, though. Because I think I had forgotten before revisiting it. It's very much an ensemble movie. Like, Robin Hood isn't in it that much.
There's a lot going on in the movie. Yeah.
I mean, he's a total himbo in this. I think everybody else does everybody else is doing a better job. Like when I think about all the voice acting that I love, I do not at all think of Brian Bedford. It's mostly just Phil Harris, Peter Ustinov, and Roger Miller. They're all great. They're incredible. I mean, Robin Hood is he's the Chris Pratt Mario. He doesn't particularly excel at it, but he doesn't take away from it at all. I don't lose it at all.
We can all agree that referring to somebody as the Chris Pratt Mario is a dig, right?
No, I'm not saying it is a dig. I'm just saying he's not additive, but he's okay. He's just he's inert.
Sure.
It doesn't affect it at all.
Capably performed by Brian Bedford.
Yeah.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I don't know if I agree with. I don't want to dive too much into it at the top, but I really enjoyed his vocal performance. I thought he really sold the suaveness of it.
Oh, he's suave as but I think
he's so suave. I thought it really added to it. I thought it was necessary, and the heroics too. I don't know. He sold
he's
it for
suave
me.
as but in a himbo way.
In a himbo way. That's a hard line to walk, and he walked it, and good for him.
But do you think he's I don't know.
Brian Bedford defender.
I think he's just way more handsome, right? I think Little John, Phil Harris, he has the good lines. He's he's the funnier character. I think he's the cooler friend in reality, and Robin Hood is just the himbo. That's just hot and can shoot a bow and arrow really well.
Oh yeah, Robin Hood is maybe the least interesting character in the movie.
Back in those days.
Listen, I mean, you can't be good at everything. And honestly, to just be good at one thing, that's great. He's good at two. So, he's lucky.
Well, listen, just before we get too deep into it, we are talking about, if you haven't figured it out already, the 1973 Disney animated version of Robin Hood. Not the one from the 90s with Kevin Costner. Just to make sure that we're not... I accidentally said Prince of Thieves once already. So I'm going to try to avoid doing that.
I thought you meant the one from the 90s with Mel Brooks.
Listen, I will.
Men in tights.
I don't want to spoil where this ends up on my list, but I will tell you that Kevin Costner is my Robin Hood, followed closely by Cary Elwes. So that's where I'm at in my Robin Hood rankings. Since we've already talked Brian Bedford, I guess we'll put him in third. Why not? Ahead of Russell Crowe.
Taron Egerton isn't on there.
No, sorry, Taron. He's my number one Eddie the Eagle, though.
There you go.
So we have talked already about the voice cast. Because that was one of the things I really enjoyed. I do really enjoy about this movie is it's such a weird mix of half of these guys are Shakespearean actors, and then the other half are folksy comedian singers. It's such an interesting blend of characters. It's because you've got Bedford he was on the West End, he's doing Shakespeare and stuff like that, and then Ustinov is a big he's a big movie star at this point, but then all the other the Little John and what's his name, the rooster, the narrator, these guys are folk singers first and foremost.
Yeah, Roger Miller.
Yeah.
He He's great. Also, did you guys like when you were watching it? Did you get real like third man vibes of like the zither? Like,
A little bit.
as he's just kind like
Yeah.
as he's just like kind of like plucking along. I'm just like, oh man, this is like very like the third man like zither
I don't
feelings.
I don't think I thought about it at the time, but now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. Cause like the two things that this like movie reminds me of a lot of was like I got the zithers there, like the zither feelings there, and like I always come back to it. It's like, is this like the first like Smithers and Mr. Burns like relationship? Because like
Between Prince John and Hiss.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Hiss and Sir Hiss, like Sir Hiss is literally Smithers.
Ironically, he's got a little more backbone bone than I think Smithers does, but
Yeah,
no, he's
Surface
great.
really like
That-
lays it down sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
He like lays down the law.
So real quick though, let's talk about your relationships with this movie. Like Alex, when do you have a memory of seeing this movie for the first time? Because it's in that range where it came out before all of us were born. But but what was your experience with this movie?
It's one of those things where I know I saw it as a kid, because like even when I was rewatching it as an adult, I'm like, oh, I kind of remember that. I kind of remember this, but I didn't. I feel like I had this kind of idea of Disney movies in like the 60s and 70s that they were almost like too old for me in a way. Like I wasn't a huge Aristocats girl. I didn't even love like The Jungle Book that much. So it wasn't a big childhood movie for me. I think I would compare like The Land Before Time, even though it's not Disney. I would say that's kind of my Disney's Robin Hood. It was fun to like revisit it as an adult. I was surprised by how much I laughed and also how freaking dark it is, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, like it
does go dark.
It gets
for a minute
dark.
there. All those kids in jail.
Oh, the kids are in jail. Friar Tuck's gonna be hanged. Like it's a lot. But no, I don't have that strong of a relationship to this movie. But it's fun, you know.
Cal?
Oh, dude, this is like my go-to Disney movie. I remember like having this VHS when I was a kid, and this, I'm old enough that like I remember going to see the Disney Renaissance stuff in theaters. Like I remember going to see Aladdin, and I remember going to see The Lion King in theaters. I think The Little Mermaid might have been just beyond the cusp of me being like able to remember the theater experience.
That was what, 89?
Yeah, right? I would have been like 2.
Yeah.
So, like, when, my parents, we had all of those Disney VHS tapes that came with those, like, thick plastic cases.
Was it the ones that had, like, kind of a foamy, like, feel to them, right?
Yeah. And whenever, like, my grandma had to watch me, and, like, she was like, put something on, and I'd always pick Robin Hood, and I've seen this movie so many times. I love it as a child. Watching it this time, though, I am now very much aware of how much of like this is like a meat and potatoes, like no frills kind of Disney movie, especially of like what came before and like very much what came after, which was just something that I wasn't aware of as a child, but I frankly kind of like it a little bit more now because it's a very humble production, and I'm assuming gonna get into those reasons in a bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's cruise through some of this pedigree real quick, and then because you touched on something there that I want to talk about for sure. But when it came out, I think that's part of what's interesting about this movie is like the context of the time in which it came out, right? Like it had some interesting things happening around it. But when it did come out, $27 million in its initial run worldwide, which is huge.
No, it did
like at the time, it was the record for Disney. I think it was the most money they'd ever made from.
Also, this was the first Disney movie that wasn't personally greenlit by Walt.
Yeah, this was the first thing that happened soup to nuts after Walt died. Or froze himself under Pirates of the Caribbean, depending on what you want to believe. It got nominated for Best Song. Love, the song that, when Robin Hood and Maid Marian are strolling through the woods there, that was the one that got nominated. But the thing that I think is most interesting, and Callie already touched on it, and I think this is the only reason that we're talking about it today is my hot take. is that it was the first of the Disney movies to be released on VHS.
Wait, are you kidding me?
Like Walt was so hardcore about preserving the like future theatrical revenue for these movies, and the whole idea of the Disney Vault, you know, like all of that goes, it harkens back to that whole mentality of like, we got to keep these precious, you know, we have to keep the opportunities to see these movies finite. So, you know, Disney Plus, I'm sure he's rolling over in his grave about it. Yeah. Or
underneath Pirates
of the Caribbean, when his frozen eyes are just but it was on VHS and Betamax and apparently Laserdisc back in the day. But one of the reasons that they chose doing this one is because it wasn't terribly beloved. It was like a canary down the coal mine of putting it on a VHS. And to your point, like anybody that was, because I remember having it on VHS, but I also remember never really liking it that much or never really caring. Like this movie always felt very separate from the other Disney movies of like the 50s and the 60s that I think are frankly just better. You know, the Cinderellas and the Lady and the Tramp and Peter Pan and 101 Dalmatians and all of those that were the, you know, the decades leading right up to Walt dying, honestly. Like whatever mojo they had working during those was, I think, a better version of it than they had in the 70s. You know, Robin Hood was always kind of like the other Disney movie to me for some reason because of that. Part of it might be the fact that it was available and I could watch it, and it felt maybe they, you know, the whole Disney Vault thing is they were right about it, because like, you know, all of a sudden it wasn't special because I could watch it anytime. So it was like that other brand of Disney movie.
I mean, is it a nature versus nurture thing? I mean, you guys have watched enough movies with me to know that I'm a total sucker for, like, you know, rogues and robbing and crime. And
it's one of my favorite parts about doing this show is getting to know you guys via what movies you love.
Did this movie start my love of like crime cinema for such a young age, or am I just predisposed to associate with like criminals?
Is Robin Hood the chicken or the egg?
Exactly.
That's such a good point, though, because it didn't like immediately jump out to me as a Cal movie, but it's a Cal movie. Like it ticks all the boxes for like
it's crime, it's anti-establishment.
The opening scene is like literally them like dressing as gypsies and like literally kissing the jewels off the ring of Prince John. It's amazing.
I do love that trope from animation where like dressing in drag and being irresistible to bad guys is like the easiest thing a cartoon character can do. Like every cartoon character is inherently able to do that.
Can I ask you guys a question? What do you think the non-musically inclined elephants do for a living in this?
The ones that can't trumpet?
Yeah.
They have day jobs, right? They're like vendors or something, you know?
I don't know. What's the economy of Nottingham like for an elephant that can't trumpet?
I mean, it's real high tax rates. That's all I know for sure.
Their taxes are insane, you guys.
Lot of tariffs over there. Just taxing the shit out of everything. There's a Beatles song about it.
There's like a lot of like complaints I know about it being historically inaccurate, but it's one of those things where it's like they're also talking animals, and you're being told this story by a rooster.
The fable told to us by a rooster.
Do you guys trust the rooster? Because I don't know if he's a reliable narrator.
Ooh.
Because I don't know why. Yeah, I feel like he was hamming it up a little bit. I don't know.
Listen, he's a showman, all right? This is the only entertainment these people have, is this rooster just kind of going around playing his, what are those guitars called? Like
a zither. No.
Zithering about.
Zither. But I mean, you know, that's like the point of Robin Hood, right? Like it's a myth, it's a legend. Like it's supposed to be, you know, it's the same reason why Ridley Scott didn't give a damn about historical accuracy in Napoleon. He's like, you know, Napoleon, like the whole idea of Napoleon is so overblown and it's such a myth that like it doesn't matter. Like the stories are real whether they were true or not, you know, like so I hope he was bullshitting us the entire time. Honestly, it would make me like the movie better. Like if I think he was that way. Yeah.
You know, there's been a heap of legends and tall tales about Robin Hood. All different, too. Well, we folks of the animal kingdom have our own version.
But I do like that the idea that Napoleon was inspired by Disney's Robin Hood. I'm going to go with that for now.
We're just, I think that should be the goal for this episode, is to just find more movies that are like Goodfellas, totally a Robin Hood ripoff.
Totally a Robin Hood ripoff. I mean, they're literally doling it all out. I love the scene.
Any movie that Cal has ever enjoyed owes a lot to Robin Hood.
I think so.
Jackie Brown, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, Jackie Brown's not out of left field. I can kind of see that.
Yeah. You guys, you're starting to figure it all out. I'm just
the puzzle pieces are coming together here, man.
You're not as mysterious as you think, Cal.
Yeah. There's no mystery to me. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. The only mystery here is this the chicken or the egg?
I do appreciate that it is brief, a tight 82 minutes, 83 minutes, something like that. We might accidentally talk for longer here, I think.
Yeah. That's my favorite part in 2023.
It's refreshing. It's like it's the same length as like the long episode of a Netflix drama.
Oh my God, it is.
There's always one that's an hour 20. But let's talk while we're still in the pedigree of the thing. Let's talk about the guy that directed it, Wolfgang Reitherman. Wooly, they called him apparently. And reading about this guy, he's an interesting guy. Like I had always kind of heard of the Nine Old Men. Like I had heard about them as a group at Disney. They were a group of animators that Walt Disney hired way back in like the 20s and 30s or whatever, and they just kind of worked their way up through the ranks all together, and they were like the core animating team for Disney all the way through the 60s and into the 70s. And Wooly Reitherman was one of them. He was one of the Nine Old Men.
Dude, he's like one of Disney's heaviest hitters, you know? Like he's on Fantasia, he's on Dumbo, he's on Bambi.
Oh my God, Cinderella, Peter Pan. Like looking at his like IMDb is insane. It's insane.
Well, but there's a lot of similar names all the way through all of those movies. Like it was this core group of dudes that animated most, if not all, of that stuff.
And then like you could see like the next generation of animators coming up underneath them, right? Like did we mention Don Bluth yet? Right. So Don Bluth was an animator on this, and you know he went on to have like huge success himself with like Fievel Goes West and all.
Yeah, we mentioned Land Before Time, but we haven't mentioned Don Bluth. But that was one of his too.
Which I didn't even put together because the whole time when I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, this is like my Land Before Time, and it kind of is. Like it's very similar, like the animation style, like. You can totally see it once you know. But
this was the era where they started transitioning into like having one director on a movie, because before then they would approach it through sequences, and so there would be like they would have 5 or 6 people that were the directors of particular sequences of this. And so I was trying to poke around to see what Bluth worked on this movie, and I couldn't quite figure it out. It said something about like stealing gold from Prince John, which I was like, well, that's like half the movie, so it could have been anything. Yeah. But yeah, he, Don Bluth, moving on, and he did Secrets of NIMH too, right? Because that's a movie that stuck with me more than anything Robin Hood ever thought about doing. But partially because it was one of those like, too young for this, Mom. Like this is real scary. But anyway, he was the other interesting thing that I read about him. I read a few things about him just being a total yes man. And that was part of the reason why Disney liked him so much. Just a consummate yes man. But he also, in something else that happened under his watch and happened frequently in Robin Hood, he was an advocate for recycling animation, which is, I read a couple of things where it was like, yeah, it's designed to save time and money. But then animators were also like, it doesn't do either of those things. It's actually harder than just drawing stuff from scratch. Like having to essentially rotoscope. I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but it's, tracing over old animation cells with the new stuff, which happens a bunch in this movie. I think Robin Hood might be the most egregious example of it. I mean, they pulled stuff from Snow White, and Aristocrats, and Jungle. Is to the point where like, was Little John a bear specifically so they could use Jungle Book animation?
I think
it's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Little John's supposed to be a big dude in the lore or whatever, so it kind of works out. But
well, people did notice too, like in case they were like hoping that no one would notice, because I was looking up all like the old reviews, and one of the most common criticisms was like, yeah, it's recycled. Like we can tell. We
Seen
can
it
tell that
before.
this is the
Yeah.
Aristocats. Yeah,
Yeah, Baloo and Little John are like the exact same.
they are.
Just different color. They're different. One looks like, I guess, is a black bear and one's a brown bear.
And there's whole like dance sequences, like Maid Marian dancing through it's the same as, you know, Snow White dancing with the dwarfs, and like it's real. It's just the exact same stuff. Like, which is, you know, I mean, there's tons of videos that you can find that just show them side by side and everything like that.
Yeah.
And when you see it, it's like, oh, yep, look at that.
Yeah, to your point, it was a weird time for Disney. And even when I was saying, like, I thought this movie was too old, I don't even think that's true, because I also really liked Lady and the Tramp and 101 Dalmatians. I think I just associated it with this weird period of Disney. Like, again, like the Aristocats, the Rescuers, it all kind of like, none of it's super distinct in my mind. You know what I mean?
You know what I'm getting from this a lot? I'm just like really appreciating your Aristocats hate.
It's like just the most forgettable Disney movie.
It's not just Robin Hood; it's also the Aristocats.
It's all of them. And I don't hate Jungle Book. I will say Jungle Book is like fun. I wasn't super into it, but like, yeah, no, I'm not a big Aristocats gal. I like Robin Hood better.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
But
What
I do
happens if I
think
just went in a big Aristocrats joke right now? So let me tell you guys a joke.
okay.
A whole. No, I'm fucking with you.
No, I wanted a joke.
I know that was a letdown.
Do you not know what have you ever seen the documentary The Aristocrats?
Oh, the Aristocrats. Yes, I thought you were
yeah.
going to tell us a joke that
I was
happened
gonna-
in the Aristocats.
No, I was gonna just tell you a long-winded Aristocrats joke, and then just
A
end it as-
long-winded and horrifically blue joke about a family of acrobats or whatever, circus performers.
Acrobats is being generous, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then end it with, "What do you call yourselves? The Aristocats."
Yeah, that's a great. What was it? Don Rickles on the Tonight Show or something like that? Is like that's the old legend where he told the aristocrats during a commercial break, like
Yeah.
he goes, and the Aristocats, like right as soon as they got back from break, and everybody's just like bawling, like
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Lovely little tangent there. The story of this movie is the weird placement in history of it. Like Walt was dead. They were trying to cut trying to do it cheaper and quicker and easier. It was still, you know, it still has the same DNA of like using old stories and, you know, that folksy kind of. It also felt very Song of the South, for better and worse. You know, like it's that like you know, the aw shucks kind of energy that a lot of the folk singers and comedian half of the cast bring to it. But it's just such a weird time. Walt was dead and VHS was just around the corner, and like the 9 old men are getting too old, and one of them, Don Bluth, is leaving, and it's a weird time, and I think it shows. Because
I think so,
whatever
'cause
they had
yeah.
working for them in the 50s and 60s, I just don't think was working for them the same way in the 70s.
I really like some of the voices and it genuinely has some very, very funny lines. But when I think about like the overall animation, it is very like, yeah, it's very meat and potatoes. I don't know. It's not super.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So many walking cycles recycled in that.
Oh
like,
man,
you see
all those
you see
rhinos marching into
You just see the armies. It's just like, none of them are walking any differently. You know, I totally agree that this thing, you could see its budget, and why it's memorable to me is just because like the charm of the cast is just operating on overtime, and that like, I mean, that's what kind of makes it work. Also, the character design. They may have recycled a lot of them, but like, you know.
This is a good spot for a break, and we're going to come back. We're going to do some brilliant moments, because I do want to talk about that character design.
Patience, my dear, patience. Remember, absence makes the heart grow fonder or forgetful.
A perfect fit, sire. Most becoming. You look regal, dignified, sincere, masterful, noble, chivalrous. Don't overdo it. Yes.
Let's talk about brilliant moments here. As much as I am middle to down on this movie, I'm here to talk about Prince John all day long. Like Prince John to me, I think is the highlight of this entire movie. Not the least of which because of Peter Ustinov, who is like his performance is he. By the way, he'd won 2 Academy Awards at this point. For Spartacus, he was the gladiator school owner, or was it a school? That's a polite way to put it.
I mean, prison, school, they were the same.
He was not a great dude. And then Topkapi, which was Jules Dassin's the second time he made Rafifi, but it was in Turkey this time. And anyway, the point is, like, he plays these characters that are, you know, they're sleazy up to the point of not, they're redeemable to an extent, or at least they're humanizing. They're not total worms. You guys know how much I like a good worm on screen. It's my favorite type of character, but Peter Ustinov's characters are never like all the way reprehensible. Like there's something that pulls them back that you just feel a little bit sorry for them every time, which is perfectly on display with Prince John here. He's such a sniveling little weasel and just sucking his thumb and holding his ear
the entire time. Yeah. Can't heavy as the head that lies the crown, you know, it just never kind of stays up.
Well, that's the great thing about the character design. Like it's brilliant. Like the crown that just doesn't fit, and like the first time he has to put it on, he's like, "Oh, hang on a second," and then he like sticks it. He has to tuck his ears out from under it just so it won't like droop totally down. And then even later, like when Cluck, Madam Cluck, Ms. Cluck, is making fun of him, like she sucks her thumb and holds his ear, and like they designed a character that we can recognize when somebody's making fun of him. Like he's got recognizable enough quirks that we get it when other characters are making fun of him. And like that's, I think, it's brilliant character design. It's really subtle and brilliant stuff.
Well, no, that's one of the few things I actually remembered from this movie. Like I said, I'd seen it as a kid, but hadn't revisited it. And once he started sucking his thumb, I was like, oh my God, I remember that. Like, that is so hilarious. Yeah. But to your point, like, you do feel bad for him. He's very insecure, like, but also one of the funniest characters in the movie. Like, to talk about brilliant moments, one of my favorite scenes is that first scene with him and Sir Hiss, where he just keeps trying and failing to, like, use the word hiss without it being repetitive. Like, it's so goofy and silly and pathetic, but you do feel like you feel a little bad for him, you know?
Well, and he's not so, like, he's clearly the antagonist. Like, he's a bad guy, and there's nothing about him that is like actually redeeming. He's just so pathetic.
His first line, I think, is the one that I quoted at the beginning of this episode, which is "rob the poor to feed the rich." It's like a like first or second line. It's like, oh man, this guy sucks.
Don't forget about the sheriff of Nottingham too, who's voiced by Pat Buttram, and like that's just a dude from like Green Acres, and he plays that like Southern fried rube so well. And the way he's animated, it's like he's animated like that Tex Avery style wolf, but he's just overweight and like just kind of like moves slow and has like a real like dumb look to his face. They just do such a great job animating him.
And he's got that sort of like slim pickings. Yeah. No, it's great.
But I do also like, I miss this brand of villain that was like so over the top and kind of campy. Like, that is one thing that I think this movie does really well, that this era actually did pretty well. I feel like we've reined in our villains too much. Like, let them be stupid and silly, you know? Let us laugh at them. I feel like we're all too complicated now. Like, have little goofy, insecure lions, you know?
Without manes. The fact that he doesn't have a mane is so
which is
good.
like, it's like a female lion, I guess, but he's not a female lion.
He's certainly not a manly one. Like, and especially when Richard shows up at the end, you're like, oh yes, you know that's a lion.
That's a lion. Like, that's the thing. I forgot he was a lion until the actual the other lion showed up.
But no, I mean, in terms of the characters, like, I mean, we already kind of mentioned, you know, Brian Bedford being a little bit forgettable as Robin Hood, but I mean, this is Prince John's movie. For me, like I was waiting for him to get back on screen when he wasn't on screen.
Even though I am #1 Brian Bedford defender, apparently, I will say the other big standout voice for me is Little John is Phil Harris. Like it's those two for me. It's Peter Ustinov and Phil Harris. They just like completely stick out and make the role.
Also, there's something to be said for Roger Miller too, right? Like, I mean, the like the musical narrator is a very like whimsical thing that I think adds a lot of style to, you know, what we've all been describing as a animation recycled like meat and potatoes animated film. And it's just like that, like that's like the little thing where they didn't cut corners, and it works so well. And even when he's like sitting in there and like, by the way, it's a lute that he's playing. Thanks, Dan. A lute, right? So like he's in jail, just like waiting to be hung for tax evasion and like just kind of plucking on his lute, and then eventually like Robin Hood and Little John break in and they like save him, and it's great, you know? Like like the fact that he's a diegetic character, it's not just like a random narrator, adds a real lot. He's a friend that they drink at the pub with.
Well, and it adds a bit of fantasy to it too, right? Like there's, I mean, obviously there's fantasy in that it's Robin Hood to begin with, and also that they're talking animals. But like it heightens it just that one extra step of it's like, yeah, no, this is a story being told to us. Like this is oral tradition kind of stuff. And the title sequence does some of the heavy lifting there too, which the title sequence looks like, you know, it's on sort of a parchment paper kind of backdrop, and the character, it's sort of like character animation tests, I think. But it's, and the motion that's in there, it's some of that walking, you know, those walking loops. And there's some other scenes, like there's a scene where Friar Tuck picks some people up in a wheelbarrow just in time to miss an axe coming down that's lifted straight from, you know, the climax of the movie, the jailbreak sequence of the movie. So like that stuff is being reused, but it's being used in a way, I mean, Mission Impossible does that. Like they use footage from the movie, so it doesn't really matter. But like the presenting the title sequence in that sort of storybook format, like it literally just looks like a book, and we're looking at the, you know, we're reading the names off the page and we're seeing the characters running all over the page, and then we get this rooster start singing about what's about to happen. There's a fantasy element that sort of lasts throughout the rest of the movie.
You know what else are like two great characters that work out really well too are the vultures that are like the
other security guards,
henchmen.
yeah,
yeah,
the deputies,
like,
I guess.
Yeah, and it's just like the one has the crossbow and he just shoots it all the time by accident. It's, I don't know. Like, to your guys' point, it's good to have dumb villains because they're just easy to make fun of and laugh at.
Well, the whole movie
We're overcomplicating our villains.
Yeah. And we're even giving them movie, like prequel movies where they're the heroes to start with.
Imagine the Prince John prequel movie. I would watch it.
Yeah, like whatever the Cruella version
the Cruella
of Prince John
for Prince John. I love that.
I got like
I'm here for it.
Just him. I mean, one of my favorite lines is like, just like, I never really got that as a child, but you know, it was your idea to hypnotize him and send him off on that crazy crusade.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty like diabolical. That's actually kind of, yeah.
That is another thing that I had forgotten about. Like, because the snake, the hypnotic snake as a trope, like that came from the Jungle Book too. Which, and they do it once, like he starts to, and they do it just for that little bit of exposition, right? It happens in the beginning where Hiss starts to hypnotize him so that he'll stop sucking his thumb. But then they never go back to it. They don't do anything else with it, unless I missed something. I think that was the only thing, and I guess it was just for that little bit of exposition about how they tricked Richard into going to the Crusades. It's like the revisionist history of like, by the way, the Crusades were because a snake hypnotized King Richard.
Again, Napoleon.
Yeah.
I like that there's a nice buddy dynamic between Little John and Robin, and then like a kind of antagonistic relationship between Sir Hiss and Prince John. Like it's fun. It's fun to watch. When
he gets shoved into the ale barrel at the, and then you hear him say from inside, he's like, "I don't drink." It's just like he's just stuck in a barrel full of beer, and he doesn't drink. Like, poor guy.
I will say there are so many like good little lines. I think that's one of my I wrote down like all of Prince John's insults at the end of the movie when he's like, "You procrastinating python, you aggravating ass." But like that's actually genuinely hilarious.
The alliterative, I think he did another one. The corpulent. He was talking about Friar Tuck. The alliterative insults are incredible.
The corpulent cleric.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. I think it was Little John actually, while he was in disguise at the archery tournament. I think he called him I think he said like "Be gone, long one," and for some reason that made me laugh a lot. There's
Be
a lot of
gone,
like,
long one.
yeah, "Be gone, long one." It's just like not
I
even
do
that smart.
some of the line readings had the energy of improv, like which I think is kind of an unusual thing for animation, particularly back then. Um, and so it did feel a little more natural. It felt a little more organic than I think some others, because Prince John trails off a couple of times and like that kind of energy, which again I think is just why Prince John was my favorite part of this whole movie.
Again, I put him and Phil Harris as the two Johns. I think steal
The
the
two
show for
Johns.
me. Yeah, but also Friar Tuck. Shout out to Friar. He's a great character. I think he's actually subtly the real hero of Robin Hood. Like
Yeah,
this
so
dude just wants nothing. Yeah.
you mentioned earlier about how the movie gets dark in the middle. You want to just skip ahead to the darkness of the brilliant dark moments?
All of Act 2, basically, like after he imprisons everyone for being poor, just for the crime of being poor.
Right.
Like it's so, and like even the song, I think I wrote down a specific lyric in the Not in Nottingham when they're all just sitting in the prison, just being hopeless, and like the children are there.
That's my favorite part of that whole sequence is like the little mom rabbit,
like yeah,
with like her a dozen kids and just spoon feeding them soup out of a little bucket. Like it's just,
well, Disney
that's
used to
such
just do that.
Obviously, it's cartoonish, but that is such a cartoonish depiction of like look at how bad this guy is. He put all of these kids in prison and we're spoon feeding them out of a bucket. Like,
well, too, I think the kids actually were voiced by children, which like just adds to it because they're almost over the top, like innocent, like the turtle is just the most precious.
Well, and
little guy.
the cadence of all of their line deliveries. I mean, it feels like the way kids will just stop and fish for words, and like it doesn't like adults don't talk like that. Like adults that are reading lines don't talk like that, but like kids that are like trying to talk like that. So I don't know. It was good.
Gee, did Robin Hood really give it to you?
Yay, this is his own hat, too.
Gee, I'd sure like to shoot your bow and arrow.
Let me try it, Skippy.
Oh, no, you don't. I'm going to shoot it first.
To like the old Disney days, I kind of do miss when Disney would just get real freaking dark. Like I don't know why I was thinking about this when I was thinking about this movie, but I was thinking about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and like when it had that one moment where the priest was singing about going to hell because he wanted to bang Esmeralda. Like Disney doesn't do weird dark stuff like this as much anymore, so it did make me a little nostalgic for that. No, but that whole sequence in the prison, like the lyrics, can't you see the tears were crying? Can't there be some happiness for me? Not in Nottingham. It's like, oh my God, like what am I watching?
I do think, like, I mean, in general, for this movie to have that that eat the rich kind of thematic material going through it, and as dark as it gets there, I mean, literally, there's no color in it's all like these dark blues, and it's raining, and like the cartoon itself gets darker. Like it's nighttime for 30 straight minutes of the movie. But the it's not like that weird existential dread kind of that even things like Snow White, we get she's like, wait, is that prince actually death? Like what's happening here? Like some of Disney's like best sort of, you know, fables or whatever, like they get dark in a very dread kind of way, whereas this gets dark in a kind of like, you know, political commentary sort of way. But I do think that's part of what's missing with this movie, is like there's not any sort of very strange fear happening with this movie.
But it is kind of sad how much it holds up, I will say. Like that aspect of it in particular, I was surprised that didn't age that much. But no, I mean,
oh yeah,
lessons hold.
Death and taxes, you know,
death and taxes,
the most,
you know,
the most evergreen content there is complaining about taxes, right?
That, and even the dreariness part, like once they round up, like, you know, all of the characters that like Robin Hood is fighting for, like that's such a great contrast to the archery competition that was just so bright and cheerful and funny and like whimsical, you know. that like he's in the stork costume and like they're shooting the arrows of arrows, and you know everybody has like their different plot lines, and like seeing like Little John just trying to like suck up as like an aristocrat to like Prince John. It's great.
I did want to talk about the archery contest too, because like that is some good slapstick. Like, and that,
it's great
that
slapstick.
early 70s. It's that Benny Hill yakety sax kind of.
Dude, the shot of what's her name, Lady Cluck, running like a full back on, you know, just like she just got the hand off of the ball and just like checking everybody. It's so
and the
good.
fact that they used that like college band kind of fanfare in the music is just like, you know, at that point it becomes some weird spoof, like which is fine, like you know, I guess that's what you need to do in that particular moment. I even think there's a little electric guitar in the score, in there's like a weird little like
oh, that's funny.
It's a bizarre scene, and like all of the slapstickness of it, and like, you know, even Little John poking his head up out of the tent, being like, "Who's driving this thing?" And it's just like people running back and forth in front. Like Robin Hood runs this way in the foreground, and then that way in the background, and it's a mess. It's chaos.
I will say that for all the times I laughed in this movie, the Lady Cluck running down the field like a linebacker was the moment where I laughed the hardest. And like, for as much as I've like kind of crapped on the animation in this movie, that was some, like you said, some very good slapstick. Lady Cluck, another surprise MVP for me. Like
she's good.
She's great.
She's very matronly and charming, and especially the scene where we meet them for the first time, when the kids go like you know, the little rabbit guy shoots the arrow over the wall on accident, and they're in there playing badminton, I guess. But that whole sequence where she pretends to be Prince John and they like do a little play fighting and all that stuff, like it's a really charming sequence, and she's a good character.
Oh yeah, and that's the moment where I was like, oh, she's chill, like, because at the time you don't really know if she's going to be like kind of the person almost kind of scolding Marion.
Well, you think about that character too in all the different Robin Hoods that we've gotten, and she's generally more overbearing than that. Like she's always on Marion's side. Like she's always, you know, Marion is her ward or whatever, you know. So she's always got her back, but like for the most part, that character is much harder to sway. Like, you know, Robin Hood always has to work harder to win her over, you know.
No, Lady Cluck is chill.
She's chill as hell.
She'll pretend to be Robin Hood and fight a kid, like, you know.
Exactly. I'll fight a kid. I don't care. I'm chill.
Yeah. Just to keep talking about how much I love Friar Tuck. I mean, I think one scene that really stood out to me on watching it was when he like initially kind of snaps, and the scene that gets him going to prison is when that sheriff tries to like steal money from the church, and that's when Friar, who has just been like trying to help the town, you know, that's when he snaps, and there's this like good little sequence of animation where he's like bumping him, like belly bumping him out of the church, and then just starts fighting him with a stick. Again, I think Friar Tuck's the hero of the movie. Yeah,
the belly bumps that's a good one. And the fact that the sheriff is a wolf that's that big, like wolves, like that's a sneaky smart choice to make him an overweight wolf, because I think wolves are always portrayed as like sleek and kind of, you know,
smart.
And conniving, and like they're not. But the fact that he's a wolf, but he's also lazy and fat, is interesting. Like I can't think of another wolf like that.
I think I had forgotten he was a wolf for that reason. Like I wasn't thinking of
he doesn't see. I didn't
wolf.
Even. Yeah. I honestly didn't register him as a wolf until we mentioned it just now, like in this episode. I never thought. I was just like, yeah, I know he's a different kind of bear or something. I don't know. Animal. He just reads as animal.
I do like in the beginning how when the storybook sequence, when it's like Little John, a bear, like Friar Tuck, a badger, which I might not have known he was a badger if they didn't do that. So
yeah, I love that. I love that the priest is a badger.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when I think of Saint Louis as a badger.
A badgering priest.
Just a badgering priest. Yeah.
we haven't really talked about the Oscar nominated scene, or at least the song, which is like Marion and Robin Hood's little like love scene in the forest. That's another thing that impressed me on a rewatch. I was kind of shocked by how sweet their little romance is. Like,
Yeah, that
even before that,
sequence,
when it's very, and it's
that
like
sequence,
not, I think it's one of the more like the more nicely animated sequences too.
yeah,
That's where they spent their money.
yeah, that's the one. That sequence to me felt very much like a Hays Code sex scene, right? Like
Oh yeah.
it's just how are we gonna have these two foxes do it? It's like, I don't know, romantic music, and they walk through the woods. Put a waterfall in there, and we can use our imagination.
There's one moment where like he like beckons her behind like a pile of rocks or something, and I was like, oh my god, are they? But then they come out on the other side of the rock, so it's like,
Yeah. Well, they're going to like his hideout or whatever, I think is what it is, right? Like in Sherwood Forest. But yeah, no, it's a lovely sequence.
I wish it would never end.
Surprise! Long live Robin Hood!
Have you guys seen the alternate ending? There was a planned ending where at the very end, when Robin Hood jumps off the top of the castle and into the moat away from the flames, and then everybody's shooting arrows at him, and it's just his hat that gets it. There's a version of this where he actually does get wounded by one of the arrows, and they take him back, and then Prince John and Hiss like track him down, and Prince John is about to kill him while he's sitting there while he's laying there unconscious, and Marion is there kind of helping nurse him back to health or whatever, and Prince John comes in with a knife, and then King Richard shows up just in time to stop Prince John. Like, that was apparently the original ending, was King Richard shows up and be like, "What have you done?" Which, again, Kevin Costner is my Robin Hood, so King Richard has a Sean Connery voice, but that would have been in things that would make this movie darker in a way that I think other like older Disney movies have. Like, I think that would have done it, but I also kind of understand why they didn't do it that way.
I also don't think Prince John would have the balls. Like, not that he's not bad enough, because obviously he's like just sending people to jail for being poor and hypnotizing his brother to go to the Crusades. But like, I just can't picture that little weasel stabbing someone, you know?
Yeah, like after 80 minutes
Not
of
on
hiding
his
behind
own.
things and saying, "Kill him." Like, I don't think he would have had the skill to actually track him either. Like, that's the part where I would have checked out.
Listen, that lion has no calluses on his hand.
No.
No
mane, no calluses.
No calluses, yeah.
He's been too busy counting farthings all his life.
It would be a good King Richard reveal, though, because I feel like his reveal at the end was a little underwhelming after hearing so much about him.
Yeah, he's just kind of back, but I like there's a version of that where it's like, no, that's the realistic way to do it, which is so funny that you keep coming back to like this movie where a bunch of talking animals are reenacting a legend. And you're like, well, you should probably do it the realistic way. Like, there's no way he would show up like just in time in some hut in Sherwood Forest. Like, I don't buy that. You mean the lion? The king that's an actual lion?
Yeah.
It's coming back from the Crusades after a snake hypnotized him? This is the part that's not realistic? And the answer is no. This is not a realistic part. This is not showing up on any movie list.
Yeah,
Full
I
stop.
didn't think it would.
Yeah.
Robin Hood as a character was in our original Top 10 Heroes list. But we only used footage of the Errol Flynn one from like the 30s. So certainly nothing for this version of Robin Hood. But that's it. Does it belong on any lists? That's a big no.
I mean, I would have tossed it in the narrators, insofar as that, like, I think.
Honestly, an honorable mention for Alan Adale. Yeah. I could see that.
I'm not saying it needs a full hit, but it's charming.
Yeah.
There's some good duos. Like, I'm sure we have a best duo list or like buddies or something. Like, again, I don't know if it's like a full hit, but maybe an honorable mention, you know?
We
Best
did.
buds.
We sort of did. We haven't done best duos, but that would be a good one. We did one. I can't remember what it was called. We did one about group dynamics, and all of our different categories had So there was a best duo in there, but it was one pick as part of a bigger list. But that wouldn't be bad because I mean Prince John and Hiss, like I'm here for that. That was the duo you're talking about, right?
Yeah, but I also like Little John and Robin. Yeah, but I was referring to Hiss and Prince John. Yeah,
right.
But no, it's Prince John and Hiss. They run away with it. I'm almost starting to feel bad though, because I don't dislike this movie. It's one of those things where it's like I don't know if I would say it's the best of anything. It just does the job.
No, I don't dislike. It does the job. I don't dislike the movie at all. Like the movie is utterly fine, but it's not. Yeah, I think the best way to put it, Alex, is it's not the best of anything.
No,
except
not the worst of anything.
It's the best VHS that Calibro could bring to his grandma's house. This is Star Wars, right?
Yeah, right before Star Wars. So like,
as soon as you got the Star Wars box set, you're like, get out of here, Robin
then
Hood.
Then that was the end of Robin Hood.
Yeah, I got to go talk about the Dykstra flex now, Robin Hood.
I actually think I had the Aristocats on VHS, and I still didn't like it.
Although I do love all of those old, like, foamy kind of clamshell VHS cases that these Disney movies came in. Like, they did it right. They really did.
What they did right was all the controversy. Like, do you remember, like, the alleged penis on the cover of, like, The Little Mermaid?
Yep.
Oh, so well. So well.
And
I love that weird lore.
Yeah.
The take off your clothes in The Lion King.
Yeah.
Oh, and the
Sex
that
was Aladdin.
Stars, also
that was
Lion
Aladdin.
King?
Take off your clothes is in Aladdin, and then Sex in the flowers
the
or whatever. Yeah.
That one's actually pretty convincing. It does look like sex. So.
It totally says sex.
Yeah.
And the take off your clothes, I think, is legit there. I remember one summer, just rewinding that over and over again, listening. I'm pretty sure it says take off your clothes. It's when
I'm glad we all did the.
It's when
the
Aladdin
rabbit
like,
holes
backs up to the ledge by Raja, like the first time he shows up in Jasmine's room. He's like, down, kitty, nice kitty, take off your clothes. I swear to God, it's there. It's incredible.
Wasn't there like a random naked lady picture in The Rescuers too? Like, there's a lot of this.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there?
Well, listen, I mean,
it might not have been The Rescuers.
So long as we're talking about Disney and their responsibility for sexual exploits, I guess. We talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but did this movie give birth to the furry movement?
To the modern furry
furry movement?
Allegedly, it did.
Allegedly.
I will say, when I was scanning this movie's Wikipedia page, that in the legacy section, it literally said that. It was like it's also credited for
of this movie.
I think it is like weirdly. It sounds like Goofy, but I think it literally is like part of its legacy. When people talk
Goofy's
about Robin Hood, they
kink.
He's a himbo.
That caught me off guard.
He's a himbo. That's a hot fox there.
And I'm going back to defending Brian Bedford. I think one of the reasons Robin Hood is so attractive is because of the voice.
Well, it's hard. You can't. Yeah, an accent is hard to say no to. But the I mean, the idea that like these animals are designed to be physically attractive to humans, I think is like. I mean, I think that's
say it like
here,
that,
right?
Clint.
I mean, right? Is that just me?
I mean, Robin Hood walked so Lola Bunny could
tip
run,
my hand a little
right?
too much there.
No, I mean, like they do. Like I don't think that's like out of the question. I mean, you kind of want to root for Robin and Marion a little bit.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You want to get why they're thirsting so hard after each other.
You want to get it, so maybe you just buy a full-size adult fox costume, cut some strategic holes in it, and then
go hang out.
Go hang out. You'll find some like-minded people. It's great. I love it. I hope that it because the director of Zootopia, right? This is one of his favorite movies of all time, and I think Zootopia did the same thing.
100%
for a whole new generation.
For the touchstones of furries, it's like Robin Hood, then maybe Lion King a little bit. I don't know, and then
I don't know.
Zootopia. Yeah.
Well,
maybe that's a me thing.
It could be. Yeah. This is one of
maybe
those,
that's me and
Kovu
from the Lion King too.
Wait a minute. Are we talking about this movie, or am I just talking about me right now?
Marion, my love, will you marry me?
Oh, darling, I thought you'd never ask me.
Let's Torf.
I think we did blow a few.
Did we blow a Torf? I suppose coming off of the heels of that conversation, we could do Truth or Dare instead of True or False.
Animated characters you would most like to bang.
Let's do a quick game Fuck, Marry, Kill with Robin Hood.
Wait, that would actually be really funny. Barring that, though, I'll do some Torfs. Okay. There's some that we Torf, true or false. Terry Jones of Monty Python fame was also considered for the role of the title character, Robin Hood.
I want to say true. I know that it was more of a search. It was a legitimate search finding the voice of Robin Hood. I'll go true.
I will go false on that.
I'm going to say true, but I bet he was one of like 20 people.
I mean, yeah, it's true. Not 20 quite, but early in production, Robin was voiced by Tommy Steele. However, he couldn't deliver the heroic tone the filmmakers wanted. I know, right? Monty Python legend Terry Jones was briefly considered as a replacement, but the role ultimately went to Tony-winning Shakespearean actor Brian Bedford.
There you go.
Yeah, could have been different though. I wonder how that would have been.
Monty Python's
better.
Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Torf. So we've talked about how they recycled animation, so that relates to this. Scat Cat from the Aristocats appears in the film. True or false?
The real Scat Cat?
I don't even know what's Scat.
Scat Cat.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'll go true on that.
I think it is like a. Yeah. They just lifted him
false.
wholesale.
Yeah, it's false, but with a glimmer of. So yeah, they reused some of the band sequences from the Aristocats. The Scat Cat band from the Aristocats were transformed into an instrument-playing rabbit or dog. So.
Got it.
Just a different animal.
That's a Tayo.
So they used it. So they used the same.
Yeah.
Like they used the same footage to rotoscope into.
Well,
but they changed them into a dog.
That was the interesting thing that because I read about how some animators were like, this is actually harder, like, and which is funny because like imagine a fantasy world in which a big corporation tries to save time and money and ends up making everybody's like job harder and a third of the people hate it.
Wouldn't know what that's like.
What is that about? But like that's apparently why like reusing the animation was like it was basically like you just had to trace stuff and it was actually harder for artists to do that than to just draw stuff from scratch. So like half the people hated it and half the people were like, yeah, whatever, I just need a paycheck, I think. But
I do understand why that could be way harder though, like trying to match the actual trace. Like
a little bit insulting. I read a handful of quotes too from animators that were just like, why am I seeing Snow White in Robin Hood? Like that's just embarrassing.
Well, actually, to some more notes from Tayo, some of the dance scenes in the woods were recycled from the silly song in Snow White. I Want to Be Like You in Jungle Book, which I can see, and Everybody Wants to Be a Cat in the Aristocats. But yeah, they just went back to the old movies and were like, this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is before this is before they had Premiere plugins to do all that stuff automatically. Now you just tell Chat GPT, it's like, give me Aristocrats, except it's Robin Hood.
Except they're dogs or something.
except they're attractive foxes.
True or false? The 4 child actors are the only voice actors from this film who are still living.
I'm really gonna hate when the answer to this is like, nope, they're dead too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so I'm gonna hope for true.
I'm gonna go with false, hoping that Clint is right. Because it's a weird thing.
I don't know who I'm rooting for to be dead in this scenario. Like,
it is false. But I'm sure the kids are still alive. But the reason why it's false is because Monica Evans, who plays Lady Marian, is still alive, and she's currently 83 years old. Oh, and live update from Tayo: the kids are alive. So.
Oh, thank God.
No.
Good news. Them and Lady Marian.
Oh, I just got a second time. They're yeah. They actually just found
alive.
all the kids. They had been missing since the 80s, but.
All right, I have one more, and it's a little less dark. A few months before release, the Disney animators needed Sir Peter Ustinov to come back to the Disney studios to re-record some of his lines as Prince John. They made phone calls to New York City, London, Paris, Vienna, and Tokyo trying to locate him, only to discover that he was working at the NBC studios in Burbank that week, half a mile down the street from them. After all that, true or false?
Oh, they couldn't find him, and then they realized that he was also in Burbank?
Yeah, just a block down, yeah. Hanging out in Burbank.
I'm going to say that's true.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm going to go true.
It's true, and I think that's just a funny story.
And that's more than just a little less dark than the Dead Kids one.
Yeah, that's properly
Dead children versus...
That's a softball right there. Good torfing, guys.
To coin a phrase, my dear counselor, rob the poor to feed the rich. Am I right? Tell me, what is the next stop, Sir Hills?
Let me see. Oh, yes, the next stop is Nottingham, sire.
Who is your MVP for the movie?
I'm actually going to say Peter Ustinov.
It's Ustinov.
Yeah,
that's fine. Like I can't have spent the last hour talking about how cool Prince John is and not give it to Ustinov.
I will to me it has to be someone from the voice cast. Like I did think about Phil Harris because I do think he's really really funny in this. But like when I think about the moments that made me laugh, it was Lady Cluck being a linebacker and all of Prince John's lines.
Linebacker Cluck. Yeah, no, I think we can just recycle the animation of me talking about how great a character and his design and his performance Prince John is, and just put that right here. Except now I'm Baloo. No, he was great. I think he's the only reason that I think you need to go back to this movie, frankly, is like Prince John and Hiss are so much fun. I'm just killing time until they're back,
Like that's what surprised me. Like that's why I liked it more than I kind of thought I would, because it's funny. Like that's the thing that I really like about it, and it's funny because of them largely.
Yeah. Great, Cal. Anything to add? Do we agree? We all agree. Unanimous Ustinov.
Oh, Delay! Oh no! It's so miserably unfair.
Well, I tried to tell you, but no, you wouldn't listen. Your traps just never work. And now, look what you've done to your mother's castle.
Cal, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, let's do it. So, if this movie was remade today, who would we have Nicolas Cage be? And I mean, my answer is pretty obvious. I would definitely want the Peggy Sue Got Married Nicolas Cage as Prince John.
No, hard disagree.
Really? Where are you going with this?
Because I'm not going to get rid of Ustinov. Are you kidding me? Like I don't want to swap him out for
okay. So we're trying to augment the cast here.
I'm trying to make this movie more memorable. I would like him to be sheriff, because I think him playing it dumb would be a lot of fun. But I think the real answer is Hiss.
Oh, really?
I think the obvious answer is Prince John, but he's also the MVP, so we can't replace him. But if we're going with the way you framed the segment at the beginning, if we're making it today and Ustinov is dead, Nick Cage.
Okay.
Well, it's just the kids and Marion that are still alive. So
listen,
yeah.
I like your idea though, and I like to take this from the perspective of ideal cast, and I like era-less Nick Cage as well. I think we can all agree. I'll just take it from here. I think we can all agree that the inert, doesn't add, but also does the Chris Pratt performance here is Robin Hood. So maybe, honestly, the Nick Cage edition here is the wild at heart Nicolas Cage to Robin Hood.
I don't know that Nick Cage... I get what you're saying about the wild at heart Nick Cage.
I think that's my favorite heartthrobbiest Nick Cage.
Well,
he's very heartthrobby in that, yeah.
I don't want to besmirch Nicolas Cage. Far from it. I do wonder if the furry movement gets quite the same kick in the pants if we have him as Robin Hood. Oh.
I don't know that it does.
I think it would be
without
better.
the without the smooth British accent. Like, I don't know.
I don't think it's the smooth British accent. Wait, hold on.
You don't? I think it's got something to do with it.
Number one Brian Bedford defender has entered the chat. I think he's crucial to making that character like hot.
If you had Nicolas Cage just being in there where he's just like taking his like little frock and he's just like, this is a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom, and then he just like kind of like pulls out his bow and arrow and just starts robbing motherfuckers. I don't know. I think
I can see that. I can see that. What if let me throw
like,
throw
if
one
Robin
more
Hood
option.
just is starting to pop the collar on any kind of wardrobe that he has before going to like rob Prince John, he's still got it.
He's still got it. Okay, let me throw one more option out there.
Okay.
And it's Nicolas Cage as Alan Adele. Like, let him be the singing narrator. If we watch this movie and periodically Nicolas Cage sings a song to us,
so I'm into it.
Can we argue with that?
No.
Like, if all of a sudden he's singing folk songs at us about like what's happening on screen.
Yeah, that's good too.
No, I dig that.
Yeah. But even the narrator's like doing a good job there. I mean, like, I think we can all agree the Chris Pratt Award of.
I'm not agreeing.
No, we can't all agree. Alex is not going to agree to that.
I'm staunch on this.
You agree. Everybody agrees here.
Cal's headphones went out again.
What?
Well, I feel like this is one of the few times that we were not able to come to a consensus on who Cage could be. So we'll need 3 Cages, I think, is what we've learned.
Well, I even toyed with like Little John. Like, I think he could do kind of like the almost kind of dopey-ish wingman. Like, I think that could also work.
Well, that's what I was thinking with the sheriff. I think like Nicolas Cage playing bad and dumb. Like, I'm into that.
I mean, the problem
like
with
Porta-Call, Bad Lieutenant Nicolas Cage.
Whoa. The problem with Nicolas Cage playing bad and dumb is he's also like really hot at that too. I mean, like Raising Arizona.
I'm also attracted to that.
Yeah. You know, so like he could be taking some heat. He could be taking some heat from like this poor like Robin Hood who's, you know, just adequate with his vocal delivery.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like this is a debate that will rage for centuries.
It'll rage in the comments, I'm sure.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. Hit up Dan on Twitter or X, whatever.
You know, I thought we'd never get rid of those 2 rascals, but lucky for us folks, King Richard returned, and, well, he just straightened everything out.
So, let's talk about where this movie ranks. Why are we even sitting here talking about this movie? Because it was probably clear from the beginning of this conversation, not on my list. Alex, is it on yours?
Big shocker, not on my list.
No, I'm told that Dan had it on his list, which is not surprising, at number 80. 80.
I think
Dan.
I'm getting Dan's taste. I feel like I'm getting very good at I can see a movie and be like, yeah, that's a Dan. I did it with Three Amigos.
Yeah.
Like, did it with this.
And that he's kind of a child.
Yes.
Cal, where'd you have it on your list?
So I had it at 40. This is like
40.
This is probably one of my favorite animated movies of all time.
Top half.
Top half.
Dan had it at 80. Did you guys have many animated movies on your list?
I think I do. Like I
got a couple?
Yeah.
I made sure to do like a animated pass like I did a comedy pass.
I'm sure I've got a Miyazaki on there somewhere.
I know I think I have a couple Miyazakis, a couple Pixars. Like I did not shy away from the animation,
Same.
I think.
Yeah. Nor should you.
No.
Okay, so let's talk about this particular bit of animation. Cal, do you have the envelope there?
Yes, I do.
If you wouldn't mind doing the honors.
CineFix top 100 envelope right
we
here.
Got two didn't make the lists, a 40 and an 80.
80. Yeah, so that, you know, we got a lot there. Where do you guys think you have a better understanding of the algorithm? So where do you think it's at?
I don't want to believe that I have a better understanding of anything, but probably near the bottom third.
Bottom third?
I want to say 60, just 60? Because math, you know? But I don't think that's right either.
But that's not how it works.
No.
Math has nothing to do with this.
Math is not the algorithm's friend.
All right, ready? So, Robin Hood is number 75 on our
75.
top 100.
Wow.
Thanks to me and Dan.
Okay.
Not bad.
A Dan and Cal joint.
Classics.
How do you feel good about being lumped in with Dan on this?
You know, it was bound to happen.
Have sooner or later. We're going to do enough of these
We
episodes
all
at some point.
We all have to take our lumps. All right.
Yeah.
But
I think me and Dan had 7 Samurai or something, which I feel like is a little
A little bit better than being with him on Robin Hood.
Yeah, I think so.
But I mean, what we could really debate here is it Clint will make the argument that it was better to be with Dan on Three Amigos, and I will stand here and I will defend my dying on the hill.
I will defend Three Amigos forever, but I will also. I've never once enjoyed being on the same page with Dan, where movie taste is concerned. But remember, this is the community season. This is the community season, and we do have the opportunity to boot this movie from the list if we all three agree as a community. Do we think this belongs in the top 100? I'm going to start, since I got stuck with the deciding vote last time we did this. Because of Star Wars, we didn't even talk about it. But Three Amigos,
Are you gonna screw me right now? You're gonna try.
I don't think that there's anything in any way remarkable about this movie. It's
not
fine.
the best of anything.
It's not the best of anything. We said that, but I think we should. There's bound to be a better movie in that envelope than Disney's Robin Hood. So I'm voting for it to go.
Okay. I feel bad about this whole concept too, because I like that this list might have some duds, not to say that this is a dud. But I'm thinking about the other animated movies or even Disney movies that could take its place, and I'm kind of voting strike.
If I were to put a Disney animated movie on here, it wouldn't be this one for sure.
No.
It's the Chris Pratt of Disney animated movies.
Get out of here. This movie spawned...
It's inert. It's neither additive nor does it take away from...
This film
spawned... Oh my God.
This film spawned a movement. How many of the other films that we have talked about could say that?
I mean, you could say that about Robin Hood the character, though. Not to nitpick too much.
So it's Robin Hood the character is the reason why people buy furry costumes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about eating the rich, not furries.
No, not thematically relevant social commentary. He's talking about furries.
But you're also striking the thematically relevant social commentary.
I think there are better versions of it in there somewhere. There's got to be.
Of eating the rich or furries?
Both.
Eating the furries.
Do we need? By the way, do we need to really quickly say, if you're out there listening and you're a furry, none of this is meant to be derogatory at all. Do you?
Yeah, I think we do need. I think we should probably.
Okay,
I did a whole feature.
not trying to make fun of furries, even a little
young.
bit. No,
yeah.
not even.
No. I did a whole.
But these are
feature
attractive
on furries in college.
foxes. I'll go for that.
I mean, listen, they're a handsome couple. All right,
a handsome couple.
They are.
But you know what? I am not going to vote to take this off the list. Damn it, this is my hill and these are our beans. And it's staying.
The line is in the sand. It's staying.
Yeah,
okay.
It's staying.
All right.
You know what? That's fine.
Hang on.
I'm fine with that. Oh.
You're fine to leave it on? Dan is trying to tell me that he's voting to take it off. But
am I getting vetoed here?
The three of us get to decide right now as a community if we want to even let Dan vote, which I feel like I know the answer to that.
I don't like to let Dan do anything.
No, I don't want to let Dan vote.
So it's staying.
Now I'm saying it's
staying. So now we have an addendum of are we voting to let Dan vote?
Yeah, we can.
You're gonna vote knowing that Dan's agenda is yours. And you're going to deny
regardless, we can offline about whether or not Dan's allowed to vote. But with the rules of this, the stipulation of this is that we all have to agree. So however big our community is, it's got to be unanimous, and it's not. So Robin Hood stays. Congratulations,
I'm not mad about
Cal.
it. I mean, I'm a little. I want to know what's in there, though. I always want to know what's in there.
I know.
We'll never find out.
Guarantee.
Kyle burns these things after every episode to make sure that the secrets go down.
Yeah, we got to. In fact, we got to wrap this up because it's going to self-destruct on the floor behind Cal here in a couple of minutes. But that'll do it for Disney's Robin Hood, staying on the list. How about that? Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for talking about Robin Hood with me, guys. Alex, Cal, appreciate it. Thank you to Tayo for the torfs and for somehow making an envelope that will self-destruct shortly after I'm done with this outro. Mariah Franzen, of course, our technical producer, and Jamie Parslow, making sure we look nice. Dan, take a hike, man. No thanks to you. But thanks again for everybody for watching. Come back next week. We will be still talking about Community, but get ready to bring out your dead because we're talking about Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the movie that we booted Three Amigos for, by the way.
Our first new top 100. That's exciting.
Our first new top 100.
Yeah.
Welcome to the top 100, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, stay safe, be good. We'll see you next time.